Thank you. It's wonderful to be back. It's great to be back here in Washington after what was an extraordinary visit. We had the opportunity to be there in Rome for the final audience of Pope Benedict. And then, of course, all of that time in preparation, waiting for the conclave to start. And then this wonderful conclave that has produced this great Pope, Pope Francis. I think he's captured everyone's heart. I just left Rome, as you know, and people on the streets stop and say, he's one of us, he's one of us. And I think that's the spirit and the sense we all have, isn't it? He's just such a modest, good, gentle Pope. And it's just nice to be able to salute him and to thank God for the gift of this new Holy Father.
Cardinal Wuerl, what might the Pope's message be to American Catholics?
I think his message is, as he said in his homily, and I think we can adapt it and apply it to ourselves, he said we need to be respectful of one another, we need to be respectful of God's creation, we need to be caring of one another. And he said, you can be very kind. You don't have to be afraid to be nice, to be kind. I think it's a very good message today because we're caught up in a very hectic world. We're caught up in a world that moves rapidly, that doesn't always stop to think about individual people and their needs. The focus of his message was, look around you and see people who have needs and take care of them.
Church doctrine is not going to change under Pope Francis, correct? A lot of people here are expecting some kind of change. I think they use the word like reform. Explain to American Catholics what won't change under this Pope.
The message will always be the same because it's a message we receive. The Pope receives the passed down gospel message, and we simply aren't in charge of it. We merely are to see that it gets passed on. We're custodians, not the authors of the message. But what will be different, I think, will be the style, the tone, the manner in which this Holy Father will go about his work of passing on the message. One of the things that he said that I think was heard very clearly, he's asked us to be attentive to all of creation around us, that we just can't be using up everything without any sense that we have to be custodians of God's good earth for the future. He also, very gently but very firmly, said, we need to be caring for every single human being. Human life is a wonderful, precious gift. And from the beginning of life on through living with all of the needs that are a part of life, we have to be there for one another. I think that's the newness in the message is not the content and substance, but the tone and the style.
Can I ask one more question? I know you're sworn to secrecy by what took place in the conclave, but can you talk to us about what your thinking was going into the conclave? Were you one of the electors who felt that we had to come out of Europe, out of Italy, and go to the southern hemisphere, to the Americas?
Well, I was very pleased when we were preparing for the conclave and talking among ourselves. That's one of the reasons why you have to be there a week before the conclave. It's an opportunity to get to know one another and to talk about what are the needs of the church. And it seemed generally understood that this was a good time for all of us to be looking beyond Europe for a pope. One of the things that struck me, though, and I should have been prepared for this and wasn't altogether, and that is just how prayerful is the conclave. Once you go into the Sistine Chapel, there's no more talking. It's just all quiet, prayer, And one of the older cardinals, who was not in the conclave, told me beforehand, he said, if you listen with your heart, God will tell you which way to vote. Listen with your heart. And so I tried to do that.
What kind of opportunities do you think this change in tone has afforded the church?
I think right now we need to be able to reach out to everyone to say we're hearing, we're listening. People have concerns. There are some issues we need to look at. And I think what this Pope is saying is we're listening. We're listening. We want to be able to walk with people on this journey, this extraordinary journey that is life's pathway. We have a message to bring. We have a gospel to bring. We have something to contribute to all of this. And I think this pontificate is saying to everyone, give some time to listen to the church's message.
And what kind of message does it send the Hispanic members of your flock here in Washington?
I think this is probably for them one of the extraordinary historical moments they'll ever encounter. It's not just for the Hispanic community. I think it's for all of us in the Western Hemisphere. That the cardinals came together, and for the first time in the history of a 2,000-year-old church, they picked someone from our side of the ocean. We picked someone from the Western Hemisphere. And it says to all of Central and South America, we're all a part of the grown-up church.
People still have concerns about a lot of things, including the clergy sex abuse scandal. Does selecting a pope who's an outsider to a lot of these things, do you think that'll help the church turn the page on this?
Well, I think he will bring a vision that is going to be very pastoral. Remember, as the Cardinal Archbishop of Buenos Aires, his whole work was focused on the pastoral needs of the people there. I think when he comes into the Vatican now, he's going to bring that with him. And I think there are going to be some changes there. I can't say what they are because I don't know. I'm not a prophet, and were I could have told you who the Pope was going to be before I went. But there are going to be some changes.
Cardinal, when you greeted the Pope the next day after his election, what did you say to him, and what did he say to you?
One of the things that I just found so heartwarming, when I walked up to greet him, he said to me, before I could say anything, Washington. And I said, yes, Holy Father, and I bring you the love, I bring you the affection of Washington. And then he said again, yes, Washington. And then he said how much he appreciates the faith of the people. And I think he was talking about our country, not just the Archdiocese. The faith and the concern and the care that our people show for people in need around the world. It wasn't a long conversation because I had to remember there were 114 others waiting their turn.
Can I go back and just get a clarification on something? In your many conversations, formal, informal, with the other cardinals, could you give us a sense of what you said, what conclusion you came to in terms of the sexual abuse scandal, in terms of the administrative scandal and mismanagement that's going on in the Vatican? What were the concerns?
Well, I think it's not so much that we had specific issues that we wanted to deal with, but we wanted a new openness in the Curia. The Curia is the central bureaucracy of the Church. And what we were asking for, and I think this was something that was said over and over again, we were asking for an openness. Let me give you an example. We said, why can't we have a system of meetings throughout the year that would bring some of us from outside Rome regularly to Rome to meet with the Pope to say what our cares are, what our concerns are. That was a big part of the discussion. A number of cardinals from around the world said that. We have to find a way, we have to find a better way to engage the whole church leadership in working with the Pope.
Now, what about the sexual abuse scandal? I mean, what was said and what were the
Well,
concerns
that
there?
was not that was not an overriding concern, because there is a sense, and I think we were able to communicate this. There's a sense that that was a terrible, terrible tragedy. But here in the United States, we have dealt very, very seriously with it. We have recognized the pain, the suffering of anyone who is abused, but we've also taken very strong steps to eradicate that from the church. And I think that was recognized as one of the gifts of the church in the United States to the wider church, a directness in dealing with this. But there are so many other serious issues as well. This is a very serious issue, but there's also the issue of poverty around the world. There's the issue of how people are being treated, the elderly, people with special needs, the unborn. These are all great issues about the dignity and worth of life. There's also the issue of the environment. There's great concern about how well we're protecting the environment for the next generation. So these were all things we talked about. The sexual abuse was a part of that, but it was one of a number of issues.
Cardinal, we're on the cusp of Holy Week and Easter. How will your experiences of these past weeks shape your celebration of this sacred time of the church year?
What I would like to do, and I'll be on the plane coming back just now, I had 9 hours in which to write homilies for Holy Week. So that's a warning to anybody who's coming to church. They're going to be substantial homilies. They won't be long. But one of the things I did try to do was bring into this week the experience of the hope that this Pope brings. This Holy Father has generated a spirit of hope in the church and in the world. The people that I met on the streets of Rome yesterday were all saying, "Isn't this a wonderful time? He loves us. Isn't this a great time for the church? He's one of us." I would like to capture some of that, some of the hope, some of the expectations for the future, some of the focus on the needs of people who have real life needs, and bring that to Holy Week. Okay? All right. Well, let me just conclude by saying thank you. It's good to see all of you here. And if I can give you, we already have the card with the Holy Father on it, and a little prayer in the back that it has some of the important data. Can I give you one of these?